Hey everyone, welcome back to the Nerd Chronic podcast. I'm here with some special guests today. You may know them as the Normies, Suraj, Nikki and Rana. Guys, thank you for coming on.
Hey.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
We are glad to be here.
I'm here with our audio engineer extraordinaire, Luis Lopez, as always.
Hey.
He's joining us on the mic today because we were discussing something very near and dear to him and near and dear to you guys now that you've completed it, which is Lost.
I love Lost.
Yeah.
I'm gonna contain my excitement.
You guys just finished your run, your reaction of Lost. Which how long was that in total?
It was actually a total of 2 years. So we started it. I actually just got the memory back. It was January 8th, 2018. So yeah, we finished it in February.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, even watching it without seasons and stuff, it's still a journey. It's still a long journey.
Yeah, I'm glad it took that long because I think when people fly through it,
Yeah.
you kind of miss some details. So we got to absorb every bit of the journey.
Absolutely. It was a very special journey to watch with you guys again. Lewis went through it when. What season did you find it in?
I started watching it like season 4 was going, I think.
Yeah.
And then it's 6 seasons, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and then I caught up right at the end of I finished season 5 and like season 6 was about to premiere. So I was like ready right for the for the end of it.
Yeah, and then I came on. I came on about I think near the end of season 6. That's when you got me into it, and then I binge watched it up until after it had already ended. I binge watched until I watched the finale shortly after it actually aired. So I wanted to ask that for you, Suraj. Suraj, what was your experience getting into the show to begin with? When it was airing, did you find it right away when it first premiered?
Yeah, luckily I watched it the first episode when it premiered on TV because my brother used to watch a lot of SportsCenter, ESPN, which is owned by Disney, owns ABC. So there were a lot of commercials for the Lost pilot on ESPN. Right. And so it looked like an interesting show. The commercials did it justice. Oh, the plane crash or those mysteries or whatever. So we tuned in and we're hooked immediately. And slowly I got all my friends into it. I got Nahid into it. He did what Luis did. He kind of binged the first 5 seasons and then caught the final season right as it was about to air. And everyone else slowly followed suit afterward. And then, of course, I got Rana and Nikki to watch it too. And it's been an amazing journey with them. And I was glad to rewatch the show through their eyes. Because I've suggested Lost to several people and gotten a lot of people to watch it. But with these two specifically, it's been great because I got to actually re-experience the show through their eyes.
Exactly.
Yeah. I actually ended up binging all your guys' videos for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I was just straight up all the way through. But I just recently caught up to where I think you guys are episode 9 or 10 on the final season out in the public.
So full clarity, we haven't watched your finale reaction yet. We were trying to, but it's been a busy week for us, so we're going to save that and we'll make a night out of it.
We'll savor the final 5 or so episodes.
Yeah, because we're very excited to see it.
I can send you those links too. You don't need to be on the Patreon and I will.
Too late.
You guys see it.
Too late, we're on it now.
Well, we appreciate that a lot.
Yeah.
That's how you got us.
Yeah. But yeah, that is part of it though. Luis, I just call him Luis. We know each other since we were kids. So I'll bounce back and forth, but his name is Luis for everyone to know. But since Lost ended, he was been talking about it when it was going on, after it ended, for years to come. And Game of Thrones he said he kind of took the place a little bit for his top show, but after that ended the way it did, we bounced back into Lost, which was coincidentally the same time you guys were watching it, and then he kind of found his love for it again.
Yeah, dude, you guys rekindled my love for Lost again.
I'm so happy to hear that.
For a long time,
man.
Lost was my number 1 show. I used to watch it every year. I introduced people to it all the time, and then I stopped watching it for a while. And Game of Thrones was my number 1 show, and then that kind of sputtered off.
Yeah.
And then I started watching Lost through your guys' reaction again.
Yeah.
And which, by the way, the editing, how you guys do it is so good because it feels like you're just watching condensed Lost, which was great.
Right. Ask Serge. So you were doing the edits at first, right?
Yeah, I did season 1, and then we finally hired an editor named Dustin, and we kind of tag teamed season 2, and then he kind of took over from season 3 onward. So when I was editing those, I would just, being the Lost fanatic I was, I would try to just include every little bit of the episode in there, and I think that translated well once we handed it off to Dustin, so that might be why it kind of feels like you're really rewatching the series. All the key moments are in there.
Yeah, I think you guys did a really good job with that because it does feel like you're kind of watching the condensed version of Lost if you've seen it again. If you haven't seen it, definitely watch it all completely.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
It was really good, and it really made me like realize like all these scenes that are in there, man, it really is just like up there is like one of the best shows in my opinion, and it probably got its #1 spot for me personally.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's, some solid foreshadowing in there, even if you're in the camp that they might have made it up a little bit as they went along. There's still like thematically it's sound. And I think that's what I wanted to insert in there. And I'm glad you guys caught that. I mean, I think any true Lost fans were watching it. They were like, this is really good. This is for the passionate Lost fan base. I'm glad there's so much more of you guys.
Absolutely. I do want to get into like, the mechanics of like how the show felt as you went on, like in hindsight and watching it for the first time. Nikki and Rana, I want to ask you guys, what was your knowledge of Lost before you guys got into the reactions? Were you aware of the show? Did you know about like certain key points or any spoilers or anything going into it beforehand?
So I personally had no information about Lost. Suraj had always said like, hey, I want you to watch a show. I want you to watch it. And I was always like, okay, like I wasn't really for it or against it because I hadn't heard absolutely anything about it. And then when he came to my house for our first like filming, I actually got hooked off the first episode, and then we just continued watching, and I really loved it. So I think other than the fact that Suraj watched the show, I really had no prior knowledge about it.
Yeah, I never heard about Lost personally. I think when it came out, I was in high school in Jordan. So there was no heavy advertising or anything like here in the States for it. And then when I moved back to the States, I still didn't even hear about it until I met Suraj. And he was always hyping it up. And when Nikki and Suraj started watching it, I was actually living in Chicago. So I didn't, hop on with them. It wasn't something that, I was going to watch on my own. And I'm really happy that they included me in their group and I started watching with them because, wow, it was such a fun ride.
It was, Basically, the start of it is Suraj.
Yeah, Suraj.
So
I'm glad you guys are
good man. Good man.
Nothing. I mean, it came out like, how old were you when it came out?
I was in high school. I think I was 14.
It started in 2004, right?
Yeah. I had literally no advertising for ABC or Lost in Jordan.
Yeah, it's funny. It started the same year as my personal favorite show, which is very similar, Battlestar Galactica, which has like a lot of similar themes in it and a lot of similar like character arcs and writing in it. And that's a whole other conversation I can have. But yeah, it was a fun time when both those shows were going on, I'm sure, for people.
We got a lot of suggestions to do Battlestar too because of its similarities just with the character arcs.
I would highly suggest Battlestar if you guys ever have the time for it. I know you guys have a busy schedule already on lock, so no pressure.
Of course.
But Serge, yes, I wanted to ask you. We'll jump back and forth here. So you mentioned the mechanics and like the foreshadowing, how people kind of like view the show and the way it was built and structured, going from A to B to C. In hindsight, do you feel that you view the show more favorably now, having watched it again in a binge watch format, as opposed to when you were watching it, week by week when it first aired? Do you have like a different perspective on the way you view it?
Oh yeah, I mean, full disclosure, I feel like I've maybe rewatched it definitely over a dozen times. It's probably way more than that, but like, and I just recently watched it with my girlfriend too because she was binging it. And I feel like every time I do watch it again, I notice something or pick up something or interpret something differently. Because as we grow up, anytime we watch a story or a narrative that we've seen in the past, we always take different lessons from it, in which whatever we're experiencing in life right now, we kind of extract lessons from that. And so, yeah, watching it again over and over, I kind of noticed how the show would just peel back layers each season and kind of just broaden its whole perspective. What it's about in season 1 is definitely not where you would expect it to go in season 6, but the foundation is still there. Yeah. So I did have more of appreciation. The themes of dark and light were always there from the beginning. And just that first season, honestly, I appreciate so much because it does such a good job of laying the foundation of all like the core characters. And the character work in that show is phenomenal. Like even people who hate Lost will say that those characters were very well written from the pilot.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the pilot was I'm correct, right? It's one of the most expensive pilots in history.
Oh yeah, I think for the time it was on, I'm not sure if it's been surpassed by now, but yeah, it was.
Yeah, and it is regarded still as one of the best pilots in history. And it definitely got me hooked when I saw it when Lewis first showed it to me, and I know it got him hooked.
Yeah, that first episode is insane. Like the fact, especially like with that cliffhanger, that very first cliffhanger, and you're just hooked on Lost. They nailed it.
Yeah,
with that thing. But yeah, like Eric is saying, I think Lost got a lot of like negativity in the last season when it was airing, and a lot of people still kind of, when you bring up Lost, people feel like it's like a botched ending show. Like that's like kind of an opinion to some people, but like I do feel like as I was watching it through your guys' eyes and like as a like all together, I feel it holds up a lot better as a binge more than like I guess when it was week to week, because everyone was just trying to like predict what's going to happen and looking too much into it. But then when you watch it straight through, I think its story is a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Because I mean, maybe people got less hung up on the mysteries when they were binging it. Because I remember when the show was out, I would take part in all the online discussions between seasons, and there was so much of like, well, what are the polar bears? And like, come on, man, they explain that. Or other random mysteries.
I feel like it was really cool watching it not live, because this is one of the only shows that I haven't really looked up anything past, and I've actually let it like soak in and then rewatch it like in another episode. And I feel like that way I got more out of it. Because like any other show I watch, I just like wiki it and like I have to know what's happening towards the end. I'm weird, but like that's how. But this one, like Suraj was like, you can't do that. Like you can't look up anything. Nor did I have like anything that I could go like, oh, what did these people think, or what's online? Because it was all already out there, so there was no spoilers.
I think people definitely read too much into it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that's part of the culture. That's part of the culture with these shows that are kind of mystery heavy. I mean, Lost definitely, anchored itself on mysteries, which is it's its own thing. And I don't begrudge them for it, but I do understand that when it's going, week by week, season by season, people kind of put expectations on it that alter your perspective on the way you appreciate the show and the storytelling. Whereas the way you guys are doing it, you are binging it, and so like Nikki said, you are limiting yourself in a very minute way where you don't let the outside influence of what people want from the show influence the way you feel about the show. And it is a unique way to view it. I mean, not everyone gets to do that because you guys, for your brand and for your business, like you have to do it that way. Whereas people really these days can't control themselves. They'll look up things left and right, and they'll be spoiled on something and build with their own expectations for it.
Oh yeah, and like the people who watched along with us were so amazing. Nobody would ever, I mean, for me at least, spoil anything. So it was great.
I think it was a happy medium, because like maybe just binging it front to back without any discussions is probably good too. But I like that the girls kind of had to sit down each time and we had to discuss what went on. So some things were still left in the brain to kind of cook a little bit, some concepts. Right. Yeah.
It felt like to me like it was really crazy to see how much support there still was for Lost in general. I feel like this series you guys were doing just had a lot of people like so hyped about it and so into it and everything, which was really made me feel happy, because like for a long time I just kind of thought like people kind of forgot about Lost in general, but like your series, your guys' videos and everything just kind of showed otherwise, which was great.
Yeah,
I think because it's such a good show, like it was the it show, like because there was no more Breaking Bad or like Game of Thrones kind of thing in that time, or like no story has like ended as well as Lost, at least. So that's why it still holds up so well.
Yeah. I was pretty shocked that a lot of people were like, oh my god, she's watching Lost, like that's really cool. Yeah. So I mean I assumed that it was obviously going to be a really good show.
I was happy to see all the commenters, subscribers, even people that sign up for our Patreon exclusively for Lost, and having the same amount of love and passion I did for it. Because I feel like if you love this show, or if you enjoyed it, it's gonna stick with you, because it's just different than anything else out there. That's what I personally feel like.
Yeah.
To me, man, no show has ever gotten me more choked up in scenes and stuff like that than Lost has, man.
It's a cry factory.
It is.
Yeah, man. Oh my god.
They really know how to tug with your heartstrings.
Yeah, it definitely does. So I wanted to ask, Suraj, so going again in like the idea of like the way you perceive the show, did you perceive it differently this time in particular? There were the reactions because you had on your mind the way that Nikki and Rana were perceiving it? Because I know as an editor, when I make a project or I edit something, when I show it to someone, the way I saw it shifts because I'm now watching it through their eyes to make sure everything makes sense and it's coherent, like things are connected. Did any of that kind of click in a different way for you when you were kind of sitting next to them and trying to make sure like things were connecting with them in a certain way?
Yeah, and I think I might have been guilty of molding their opinion or how they formed an opinion of the show, because when they were done, Mickey and everybody in the office was like, bullshit, you somehow made them like that. I was like, maybe I kind of had them know that the characters were just as important as the mysteries, and were like that could completely shape your opinion on the show, whether or not you hold more weight to the mysteries or what happens to these characters. I think mostly what I got out of it this time and what was clicking in their heads was just like, again, how well written the characters were, because I mean, I know Nikki hated Kate for the majority of the run. But most of all, like all the characters kind of come around to being, seeing Nikki's hate for Sawyer in the beginning and Jin, just those characters, the way they were written. I mean, that was how the writers intended it. And then just seeing how 6 seasons later their arcs have changed, and she's just like unequivocally rooting for Sawyer and Jin, and it's like amazing how that's just a good lesson in general, that you shouldn't judge someone upon your first meeting of them or what you know of them. You don't know anything that went on in their life. So yeah, I think what clicked with me the most is how they viewed the characters of the show. Yeah, and they didn't put as much weight to some of the mysteries that I did when I first watched.
Yeah, and it is funny because the Battlestar is the same way. I won't get into like the details of that, but it's a very similar aspect of that. And then looking in that regard to what we were talking about with Game of Thrones, I feel like that is why Game of Thrones kind of flipped in the way, and it didn't really land with like anyone like the way it did. Very little people, which because Game of Thrones was predicated on mystery and like suspense on what was going to happen with the story, but the characters were also important. I feel like they kind of by the end betrayed a lot of the characters in a way that people felt weren't comfortable with. Whereas Lost, even though some of the mysteries didn't pan out in a way some people wanted, the characters, like you said, did pan out in I think like realistic ways, with like realistic arcs for what they had been, the way they had been written for the past 5 seasons. And I do feel that the show had landed in a certain way, looking back on it, that feels very comfortable to watch again and to understand why they went from A to B.
Yeah. And I completely understand why some people don't like it based on the answers to some mysteries or what directions they chose to go in the final season. But everyone can agree, even in the office, like the way Game of Thrones ended, and like you said, betrayed both the characters and the plot a little bit. Whereas this show, if you look at it as betraying the mysteries a bit, the characters at least ended very soundly. It was like closing the final chapter of a book with, the eye closing at the end. Spoilers.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And we will get into spoilers in this whole thing. So yeah, it's fine. So Nikki and Rana, again, so how did you guys feel about the resolution of the show? I mean, in general, was there anything you felt maybe not satisfied with? If you did, feel free to explain, but is there anything that you guys wanted that, you were expecting out of the show that maybe didn't turn out the way you wanted, but if that was a good or bad thing?
No, honestly, for me, everything ended almost perfectly in a way. Like, I'm not gonna say I'm gonna just say almost perfectly. Yeah, it was just, it was so nice to see all the characters again, because the characters were really a big part for me in the show, and to see them go from not being so lovable to being a family and then ending all together was phenomenal. I'm like, okay, they didn't separate everybody. Nobody ended up on their own kind of thing. And for them to make a promise to each other, it was just so nice. And like people had a problem with like the polar bears and the smoke monster or whatever answers to that. That didn't like really bother me. I feel like I got a good answer from that too. And even with the epilogue, that gave me more answers about Walt. So like it all came together.
So were you fine with like the big kind of Disney-ish explanation of like the light of the island and the cork and all that stuff?
Because it made total sense with like Jacob and the Man in Black being, white and darkness, good and dark, white and black. Like it was heaven and earth. It made complete sense. And maybe it was like a little Disney to some people, but if anything, it's like the energy of life and earth to me. So that's the way I took it.
I feel like, so me personally, a lot of people told me that I was not going to be very happy with the ending because I know myself, and if I wasn't watching it with Suraj, I feel like I would not have been happy with it because I'm more of a, why are there polar bears on the island? But I guess through seeing it or having Suraj there with us and seeing just the characters flow back and forth, and I feel like the show for me was more about how they all were together as like a little family and a little like, oh, it's like not the others, it's like our islanders, and I want them to be together rather than like, oh, why are there polar bears, or what was Walt doing, or why was there a food drop? You know what I mean? So
even like Ben was like resolved in a way too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he like they were each other's enemy, but like in the end he was accepted. Like and with Hurley too. It was so beautiful.
Oh my God.
The ending didn't feel like cheesy to you at all, with all the
No,
characters reuniting and like
That's what made it
they're
for
all
me.
together and the
I
music.
think, like, for me, like, I didn't even think about the cork and the light. Like, I don't think, honestly, it was about the mystery of, like, if you ever, like, a book that I've read in high school was Tuck Everlasting, and it was really not explained why the well gave you, like, eternity or you were immortal. Like it's
the
a very
Fountain of Youth or whatever.
yeah, that's what it was. And so, like, in that, I also wasn't like, oh, well, why was the water, you know, the way it was? It was just that way. So I feel like that's why I was able to accept that there was just a light that kept the island preserved, and then you had to protect it. So I feel like that was the end of what my mystery to the island was.
There's always something that's bigger than you.
Yeah. I believe that too. So
Yeah, in the end, I think I agree. In hindsight, watching it again for like a third or fourth time, I am able to come to terms with the fact that, yeah, a lot of the mysteries are just simple answers that, you know, are given to us, and like we know what they are, but really they're just mechanics to get us further with the characters. And that's what you should really take away and appreciate. And watching it again through with you guys, like we said, that does make me appreciate it a lot more, because I think we were seeing how much you guys were appreciating the characters and like what was going on with them, and the mysteries were being peeled back one by one. And, you know, you guys rolled with it. You know, you were always more concerned with what was happening with the characters and how it affected them, rather than like the plot and the overall thing. Yeah.
Even worried about dear old Ben at the end.
Even just like something as simple as Sun being revealed to have been able to speak English in season 1. I remember Nikki's reaction was like, "What?" More than like any other reveal.
I was very shocked. I was like, "There's no way."
There you guys had definitely a lot of fantastic reactions to things.
Incredible reaction.
Thank you so much.
Twists, turns, shocks, all that
Thank
stuff.
you so much.
Yeah,
guys.
thank you. That
As I was watching it, I would like at 3 a.m. send Eric like a video of me watching you guys watching it and just laughing and reacting to the scene. Like Eric's got like 4 or 5 clips in his text. of
That's
that.
awesome. Nikki
many
and
good
Suraj
stuff.
are hilarious in it too. Those two together. That's why it's in between them.
Except for the one, which I think is probably my favorite, is when Surge is sitting in the middle when Michael shoots
Oh my gosh.
and Lucia and Libby.
You guys are just shocked, and then it zoomed in on him and he just smiled.
I know.
That's exactly how I felt. I was grinning from ear to ear just to see the reaction of this terrible thing happening.
Yeah.
I knew it would make a good thumbnail moment because you guys would be shook, and I'm just
He was crazy with a lot of the shocking things, because all you could see is like, if you watch the video again and you just see him like just smiling in the corner, and it's like,
Yeah.
That was another thing I enjoyed a lot, was just not only seeing your guys' reaction, but seeing you guys like, you know, foreshadow something or think something, and just seeing like Surge just have this slight little remark, because we all knew, like the people that watched, what we were thinking of how you guys were reacting to it.
It got difficult. I had to wear glasses at one point to try not to give away cues. Then that became obvious every time I grabbed the glasses. I'm hiding something.
One of the ones I just watched to catch up on was I think Nikki says, "I can't wait for Sun and Jin to reunite." And then Surge, you just have like this really like subtle like this really like muddled laugh because you know it's coming.
Yeah.
that was so evil. That's evil.
It was my reaction.
It's messed up because it affected us so much that we just want to see how much it affects someone else.
Yeah.
And credit to you, Serge. Like, I know you get a lot of crap from people in the comments, you know, saying like you told them too much or you said this and that, but you did an excellent job at like just, you know, holding back so much and like hiding, just good poker face.
I really appreciate that. I feel like I got better as it went along. I feel like I was definitely divulging a little much, and then I reined it in a little.
It's a tough job. It's a tough task to do that with a show like this, to explain things, because there's a lot of stuff you can explain to help them along the way, but also not give them too much, you know, to let them have their own conclusions.
Let them theorize and come up with their own conclusions. Yeah.
Right. So I do want to talk about, you know, just kind of the stuff like that, our favorite things. So I guess we can go around the table. Who was your guys' favorite character, like overall, in hindsight?
That's so hard.
Okay, well, I'll go first because I know my favorite character.
I can't pick.
My favorite character is Hurley, forever and always. I don't think ever love a character as much as I loved Hurley. He was just so charismatic, just so positive, so cute. So I can't get over that. I loved like the way he did things. He always wanted to make people happy and like make the island better. And yeah, I mean, I just am obsessed with him. So
he was like a surrogate for the audience sometimes. Like he would just say exactly what the audience was saying.
Exactly. Especially when, if you remember the time where he was like talking to Miles about the physics, and it was just like, it was me.
Oh,
like,
the time travel.
Yeah, the time travel. Like that was legit me on the couch. Like, dude, you're wrong.
Faraday's your second, right?
Yeah, Faraday's my second. Yeah. I would say Faraday is my second. I love his voice. He's really cool too, except he's total smarty pants, so I can't. I actually saw him recently in the FBI, which I watch also, and I told Suraj, and he's like, that's nothing like Daniel Faraday. I said, it's exactly like him. It's a different character, but it's him.
Right.
There's too many. I'm gonna have to pick maybe Charlie because I loved his character development so much. Like I just love Charlie's character development so much. Ben and Rose is my favorite couple.
Yes.
Like,
my favorite.
Bernard and Rose.
Yeah. And I'm like, two people I'm just going to mention, honorable mentions that I really like are Ben and Locke.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just love them.
No, they had amazing scenes.
Yeah, they were just phenomenal characters. I like really hope they won multiple awards for what they did. Like Locke as like Flock, fake Locke and everything. Like, wow. Like, it was so good. That was Chris.
Yeah.
They killed it. And honorable mention to Richard too, the end.
Oh yeah, there's so many good characters.
I know. I can't.
So hard. That's a hard collection.
It's hard to put it like a second, like a third, fourth, like list it all, because then essentially everyone becomes like, oh, I love this character for this and this character for this. Yeah. But I do have a favorite, so I'll
claim Charlie.
It's really close between Desmond and Jack for me. Yeah, the brother. Oh. But I think I'll go with Jack, even though he's the main character. I don't like.
You love Jack though.
Like, he had like the most convincing arc to me. Maybe not the most convincing, but from seasons 1 through 6, just going from being a man of science to a man of faith and learning to let go, which I think, as far as the human condition goes, I think letting go is the hardest thing you can do.
Right.
And I just love the way they ended his character, and he's my fave.
That ending is incredible to me, just because it just felt like such a, just to see him walking into like, you know, the bamboo forest or anything, just the final scene. I just see it coming. Like my reaction was just insane when I watched it, and very emotional, and you know, teary eyed and everything when all that was happening. It was really great.
Yeah, and I think Suraj, you did do a great job emphasizing the faith versus science type of thing between Jack and Locke early on. So all three of you had like a really visceral reaction to when Jack finally says it's our destiny, and when he's trying to blow up the hydrogen bomb. That was perfect. It was perfect. You guys it clicked with you guys in a really perfect way that I loved seeing in your reactions.
What about you guys? Who were your favorite characters?
Do you want to go first?
It's hard, man. I was this whole time I'm trying to think, but as a personal, like, I guess you have favorite Charlie. I mean, I'm a musician as well, so like I like the guy that was a musician, but just, you know, the way he goes out and everything in his arc and everything, just really like emotional, and I really like it. Jack is definitely someone that's really good, but I think the one that made me feel a lot was probably Ben as well, just because like. Ben is just crazy. He does a lot of really bad things, but then like you just kind of feel like he's a victim of like everything that he like everything he was around and where he was in, and he just did what he did to like survive and, you know, be up top and all this stuff. He's it's just, as a character wise, it's kind of crazy. And then when he has this big moment where he just kind of lets it all out, when he's at gunpoint, you know, digging his own grave and everything. I just think it's such a powerful scene, and you guys reacted to it really well as well. It's just, it does so much for that character in general.
He's phenomenal. I agree.
I definitely feel like I laughed when he was digging his grave.
I was like,
no, but not the scene where he was like crying.
I was kind of in the same boat as Nikki for like a lot of Ben's stuff. Like it was when you're like, people like this guy.
People enjoy him.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
I was in the same boat. I do empathize with a little bit Lewis and everyone else. I understand how Ben's character is very tragic in a way, and you kind of understand where he's coming from in a certain aspect. But he does a lot of bad shit that I do feel in hindsight still is like almost unforgivable. Like it's hard to like just let that go.
So like that's how I felt. I was like, personally, you don't even know what happened to him when Richard took him to get him better. Like, did Richard really do anything bad to him to make him the way he is? Like, you don't. That's a kind of.
I think he changed when they took him to the cave. He changed and he didn't have parents. He just knew the others in life and everything. That's how he grew up, and that's what he knew. But then when he met like our people and everything, it's like kind of started breaking the spell in a way in a little bit. That's what I believe. I don't know. It was never Ben's fault.
I don't see a gray. I feel like I don't see a gray like matter with him. I just think that he did these things because he felt like he was losing control, and he should have never really had the control in the first place.
It's all he knew.
I know. I sympathize with you, but I do
live in
not
the real
agree
world
with
again.
you.
He can't go live in the real world. The island's all he knows.
They probably did the same thing to him that they did with Saeed, right? Or they probably put him underwater and everything, and he probably came out a bad egg as well. Like, you know, just
but like, there's nothing to break Saeed's like spell yet. Like, that's what Saeed is. Like,
yeah, and I think like I thought Ben would have been cured, like, because I feel like something that I read was like, oh, the water was able to cure you because Jacob was still alive, and like, what if that was the case? Jacob was alive when Ben was in the water, so I feel like he would have been cured essentially. So I don't know. I feel like a lot of the things are unforgivable that he did, but
Richard did say,
I don't hate him.
If we do this, he'll change forever.
That's what I'm saying.
We don't know what he meant. Yeah.
He changed until he met the other people, and more like freaky shit started happening again. That's when his little spell was broken. It was never his fault.
He had a verbally abusive father. Got taken away on an island.
Saw his dead mother. Yeah. Jesus.
Got shot.
And then at the end of it all, Jacob just tells him, "What about you?"
Yeah. Like, this was his like belief, and like for his whole life, this was like the only path he knew.
I sympathized him towards the last season, but like when he was in the beginning, I was like, bro.
He became Hurley's number 2.
Why?
He became Hurley's number 2.
He did. The character so well. The actor did incredible.
The actor really did. I love the actor.
My name is Henry Gale. I'm from Minnesota. Get the fuck out.
I was like, Henry Gale.
Yeah, his shaky Weasley voice is so good. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you guys,
let me get my favorite character before I forget, because I'm gonna forget if I don't. My favorite character was Richard throughout it.
Really? Okay.
I think that it was mainly because of his mystique through the show. And because there's a moment when they're time hopping, they're time skipping, and they go back to
a Richard episode.
Yeah, not the Richard episode, like his backstory, but when they travel back to the 70s or before, during the war, and they find the hydrogen bomb on the island, and they take them to see Richard. They take Daniel and the others, and they say, "Richard, we're here." And he walks out, and there's that tracking camera shot, that handheld tracking camera shot as he walks out of the tent. For me, that moment is like my favorite moment in the entire series, just because it's like that's the moment where you realize it, like the penny drops entirely. You're like, this guy's the same age. This guy's been the same age for like fucking forever. Yeah. And you've seen him before in flashbacks, but he has like long hair, don't care Richard, and he has like, all those other things where you think he's like maybe just like slightly younger. They couldn't age him the right way. But that's when the moment where you realize this guy, like, there's something weird about him. And then Juliet has a line. Locke asks, "How did you know Richard would be here?" And Juliet says, "Richard's always been here." And they had those like kind of small hints and drops about his character, like really like drew me into like the lore and the mythos of the island. And that's what I love about stories, is like lore and kind of mystery and mythos about what's going on with like that fictional world. And so Richard was a huge example of that to me for what this show was about. And I was really satisfied, with the backstory that Ron had mentioned, his origin story, where he came from and his interactions with Jacob. That is, it's like one of my favorite episodes in the entire series.
His background story was really good. I actually appreciated that episode a lot.
The episode was phenomenal.
I know exactly what tracking shot you were talking about. So good. He walks out like a fucking boss, and you're like,
so good.
But I want to ask you guys, because to me, I feel it's like one of the most crazy manipulative things that the creators did, which is like, and tragic, is the whole idea when you realize that Locke, who we know, is actually dead, and you find it out way later in the series. Like, you see him get hung, but then you see his body, and then you see him back to life, and you think, oh, Locke's fine, so whatever, we're just going along. And then you realize he's a smoke monster, and then the smoke monster then tells you want to know, like, the last thing he thought in his head is just like, he doesn't know why.
I don't understand.
I don't understand. And everything. And I just feel like it's so messed up, because then you're just like like I didn't even get to mourn Locke dying, but he's dead. Like, and now we're like moving on with like everything that's going on in the show. Yeah, which I feel is like really crazy thing that the show did.
It was so sad. I thought like they brought him back to the island, and the island brought him back to life. Like he was chosen, he was meant to be, he was special, all that stuff. And to find out his last law was like, I don't understand. It just proved that he wasn't that special. Like everything that happened in his life was just like shitty as fuck, and I felt so bad for him. Like, it was really sad to see his character go out like that. And like, you're right, I did not get to mourn him, and then we got fake Locke, so it made me hate him.
So like,
what's up to you?
So like, this was the one thing that someone actually spoiled that for me. Someone texted me and told me that he was Flock. So I didn't really get a chance to like react to it, but I didn't know exactly who he was.
Right.
So like, I guess when I understood that he was a smoke monster, I was like, oh my gosh, like he can form into different people, and now he's like just Locke, and that's who it can be. So I was really sad that Locke did die though. That was really depressing.
Nikki called me right when it happened because someone on Discord DM'd her just a paragraph of spoilers, but the first line was like, Locke is fake Locke and it's not him, and like she was like, no, she was crying. I was like, no, that's one of the best fucking reveals.
I am so lucky I didn't get spoiled.
I literally just texted Suraj. I was like, SOS. I was like, call me back.
Terrible. And that same person had messaged all of us at the Normies with various spoilers about like Naruto and other shows.
I've never gotten any spoiler in my life. It's crazy.
Well, I was like,
our settings
I didn't even know. Yeah. And I had been new to Discord. So like, I just opened it and I was like, oh, well, I don't know what this is, and opened it and read the first line. I was like, are you kidding me?
But it's good you still didn't know how.
Yeah. I didn't read the rest of the paragraph. Yeah. I just read the first sentence, and I was like, what?
For me, it was like, Locke had thought he was special throughout the show, and everyone was telling him he's special. Richard like visiting him as a kid, and like, everything happens for a reason. And then to have him come back on the island, I'm like, of course he's alive. They're not going to kill him off. And he's acting like the island is telling him things. I'm like, yeah, this is like a new enlightened Locke. Fuck yeah.
I know.
And then like to realize he died. He died the most tragic character.
Literally. He's always had a sad life, from his dad to being in a wheelchair, his like everything. I
feel like in my personal opinion though, he still is special because he made like Jack change his mind from like being, oh, this is it, and this is how it goes, to it's destiny. You know what I mean? So he did have a purpose. I feel like going from just everyone believing that this is the way it should be versus this is how it should be.
Yeah. And I guess that's kind of the way I took it overall in the big picture, was that Locke, he always talked about the sacrifice that the island needed. Like he was the sacrifice that the island needed.
Yeah.
Like he was what everyone needed to kind of come to terms with what the island was to them, and like what it really meant to everyone in the big picture.
That's a really good point.
And like it's crazy watching it now, especially because we people are talking more about like depression and everything, and I was telling Eric too, like the episode 6, the first episode, it's just crazy when you see like the plane land and like the whole flash sideways, the very beginning of that. And you see Locke's character like smiling with Jack when he's talking to him about like him not being able to find his dad, and he's just such a nice, happy character. And then that final shot is just him like no smile, getting taken out in a wheelchair by the assistant on the plane, and you just realize it's just like such a big thing of like about like depression and stuff. Like that's Locke basically. He's just so kind and so happy to everyone, and then you just see him just turn sad by himself.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really great for the character, and I think would sit so much better if people start watch Lost today now.
With all of the things it has to say about mental health and depression.
Absolutely,
and relationships with one another. Was there a mystery or anything you guys? Was there a shock or twist or reveal that got you guys the most? Do you think that shocked you the most? That had the most visceral reaction for you?
So much. I guess for me in the end, finding out like the flash sideways was like not really a flash sideways. They were like dead, and it was like all of them waiting to like connect with each other. I was like, what? No way. I was like, that was a shock. But there's so much more. I know there's so much more.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I can't think right now on top of my head, but there's so much.
Like Walt getting taken. I'm trying to go season by season.
I don't know. I feel like each season had a really big reveal that was like, what? Like, I can't believe that.
The fucking frozen wheel that moves the island.
That was intense. Yeah.
That one.
Even going back to like early season ones, just like when they're on the raft and then the boat shows up and they think they're saved and then they're like, all right, we're gonna need the kid. Yeah. And then you just leave them out there.
Yes, I think that was a really big scene for me too, because I was like, what?
Yeah. And then like Sawyer jumping off the helicopter, I was like, that was like shocking to me. I'm like, he was not like that selfless. I was like, no way. And he just jumped off it. And then motherfucking when they killed Jin, I was like, that was such a simple thing. Like they killed him off. I was like, that was super shocking to me because I thought he would have made it.
All from the freighter?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, he did live.
I mean, he did, but what I made me believe, I was like, no.
Yeah.
I was pretty shocked that Jin was like, we were all like, oh my God, Jin.
The actress that played Sun did a really good job.
She did.
And another thing that like shocked me, or I guess made me like whatever, I was like, Charlie, you could have got out. I was kind of shocked that he didn't get out. I'm like, bro, we so could have got you out. So I was kind of shocked, sad, I guess. It was a mix of emotions that like we could have saved you.
I hated that Charlie died. I was really very sad about that one.
Yeah, I think a lot of it with the Charlie thing is just like him like accepting that it's just like he's not going to get away from dying.
Yeah.
Like it's just like what was supposed to happen, what was going to happen. And he at least did this thing or like gave this important information before he went out, you know? So, but it sucks. That's like one of the craziest scenes for me as well. And very painful to watch.
Yeah. And then the hatch, finding out about the hatch, I was like, ah!
Finding out Desmond was in the hatch.
Desmond in the hatch
was a shocker.
When he says brother, and you're like, that's the same guy. A lot of people are pissed about the Charlie thing, but I think exactly what Louis said. He finally succumbed to the destiny or the way things work on the island.
I just wanted him to outrun death forever.
I know. Just like at least outrun it until a longer season.
I think we have to go back is my number one favorite like twist surprise moment of just the reveal of the flash forward for the first time, because by then everyone who had been watching it live too had just been getting sick of the flashbacks. We're like, all right, how much more do we need to know about these characters?
Yeah, the tattoo thing.
Jack in such a place. Oh god, the tattoo.
The tattoo. The infamous
so many
tattoo
shocks.
episode.
Yeah.
Vlog's dad pushing him. I'm like, what?
Oh yeah.
It's like he pushed him. Motherfucker.
Yeah. Is there a favorite which like arc or like season that you guys preferred in hindsight? Like there was an era of the show you're like, I really like, love this part, this when they were doing this thing in the show.
I think for me it's like season 5 and 6, like the whole like time travel and the wheel and like them shifting from like different time eras and everything. I really like enjoyed that season.
I think for me it would have been 4. I like 4 a lot. I also like I don't know. I was more on the dynamic of like them getting in fights and then getting back together and moving a different part of the island, and like then they finally reunite and everyone's just like either apart or together. And I feel like I like that a lot more than, I don't know. I liked the last seasons, but I think 4 would be my favorite.
What was the jumping season? That
was 5.
That was 5. Yeah, I loved it. Like Julia and Sawyer lived together and they're going to different eras and trying to get back to the island and stuff. That was phenomenal. That was a really, really good season for me.
Season 4 for me as well. It was very tightly written. I know it was during the writer's strike, but it was like the flash forward season, and it kind of reinvigorated mysteries with the characters. Like who was the Oceanic Six?
Yeah.
Like who got off? So
who were the 6? And I was like, it's the baby. You count the baby as one.
Nikki does not count the baby.
I don't think the baby should have counted.
Baby's a human.
No, not part
that
of
writer's strike, man. Like that writer's strike threw wrenches into so many shows in that time period. But I did kind of feel like when rewatching it with you guys, it did kind of just seem like, at least like if no one told you there was a writer's strike to happen, you would just think it was like a shorter season kind of, and there are some like loose ends or anything, but it didn't feel as bad or as detrimental to like say like Heroes or something. The writer's strike,
Heroes definitely got
destroyed.
That's the biggest victim to the writer's strike, in my opinion.
Never recovered.
I think you watched Heroes.
Yeah, I'm glad some other people remember Heroes. Every time I mention Heroes here, everyone just looks at me like, what show?
I just remember the dude from like Gilmore Girls is in it. That's all I know.
Yeah.
Which dude?
Yeah.
The guy from This Is
Milo?
Us. Yeah.
Ooh, Milo's cute.
It's unfortunate that Heroes is one of the shows where like it starts off like pretty strong. In hindsight, I don't know how well it holds up that first season, but like it starts off strong, and then the writer's strike hit in the second season, and it just like never recovered. It just like crumbled after that.
It destroyed it.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
No, season 4 Lost definitely held up. I mean, if Suraj didn't say anything, I would have definitely not noticed. I think it was phenomenal.
Yeah, I
mean, it's Nikki's one of her favorite seasons. So
yeah.
Yeah. Was there any? This is like the always the obvious question. Who was your favorite ship in the show?
Oh my god! I I was forever going between like, you know, Jack and Kate and like Sawyer and Kate, but like I'm definitely a Kate and Jack. Not a skater.
You're a jader.
I'm a jader.
You're a jader? You changed? Like, I mean, last episode?
No, yeah, I did. Like, last few episodes, I changed. I did. I was like, ooh, Sawyer and Kate. It's like, I'm a skater. That's so hot. But in the end, it was just hot and lust. Like, what Jack and Kate had together was more than that. Like, it was beautiful. It was freaking beautiful.
I know you skate all day, every day, Nikki.
I skate, but I don't like either skate or Jate. So how about that? How about I choose
Sawyer and Juliet?
My favorite ship would be, actually, I can't decide between three, but I have three. Claire and Charlie, Sun and Jin. I used to not like them, but oh my gosh, towards the end, I almost died when I saw what happened. And then Rose and Bernard. Those are I think Rose and Bernard are my forever OTP because they're just like, Rose and Bernard.
They're the definition of love.
Yeah, no, but you can't count me and Kate and Jake and and Sawyer, whatever it is.
While I do believe that Jade is fate,
Oh God.
I think Sawyer and Juliet was very well done.
It was,
People were thinking it like, are they gonna do it? Are they gonna the writers gonna do this? And then the way they did it was very believable. They'd lived together for 3 years, and the reveal, like after she finally like is able to have someone give birth on the island for the first time, and they kiss, and it's like a reveal. Oh. Their relationship seemed the most realistic to me.
Yeah. I did like their relationship. I'm not gonna lie, but again, they were in that little love rectangle thing, and it was kind of like
Desmond and Penny.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh my God, I forgot that.
Honorable mention to Charlotte.
And
Charlotte and Faraday. Honorable mention to those two.
So many ships in this show.
I know. Oh, I forgot about Desmond and Penny.
Who's it? Hurley good?
Libby.
Hurley and Libby.
Well, Hurley's mine, so I'm not sharing.
I think for me it was either I don't have as much of a problem with Kate as a lot of people do. I understand why people have problems with Kate, but I wouldn't do Sawyer and Kate just because of the fact that I really loved Juliet and Sawyer together. Yeah. Like when they revealed that, like Suraj, you said it right. Like they sell it after just one episode, and like it works so well. And maybe just because the actors have such great chemistry together, like it just makes it so believable after you see them together. And beyond that, what was the other one? Penny and Desmond. Like that's just like
I totally forgot about them. Honestly,
too, but I think that's just because they were like.
Oh,
can't imagine them without each other.
Yeah,
the constants.
What couple was really cute in the end was Hurley getting Saeed and
I'm surprised at this one. Go on.
Yeah, Saeed and Shannon together. Yeah, I was like, what?
Yeah. A lot of people did not like that.
I loved it.
I liked it.
I know people wanted to be with Nadia and everything, but like Nadia always belonged to somebody else technically.
And
like, I'm not saying belong.
her.
She's a woman. She's her own woman. I'm just saying she was in a relationship with somebody else.
Yeah, but then again, you have to see the side where he was like actually torturing her at the beginning. Like, would you really ship that?
Yeah, I mean, we forgive Ben for everything he did. So, So in the end, what do you guys feel? There's anything like we already addressed the resolutions and everything unanswered. Is there anything in hindsight you feel was unanswered that you feel you're kind of still scratching your head about? Maybe not something that detracts from the show or your enjoyment of it, but just something that you would like to know more about.
I guess for me is like I like to believe that we live in a world like where there's always going to be something bigger than you or a higher power, and the stars are there for a reason, the moon's there for a reason, and all. But like, how did they get there? Like, how did the island get there? How did the powers get there? Like, how did it all like come about? Like, did it fall from the sky? Did it like manifest by itself? Like, how did it become?
Yeah,
like,
I like that question.
The very origins of it, because like we know a lot of things like why and how it works and all that, but like, where did you come from?
Right.
Yeah, I think for me it would be I feel like the same, like how did the island become the island? Other than that, I think Walt was a big question for me, but that was solved in the epilogue that I just saw, which was, I guess, a good wrap up of him. But like as to why he was special or what caused him to be the one that ends up maybe running the island.
There's a lot of special people on the show, Nikki. I mean, Hurley can talk to dead people.
Shut up. Okay, don't talk about Hurley.
Can't talk about. So I was pretty much satisfied with everything. I didn't really like the Whispers answer, like the way.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. That was the only thing that kind of just like really of everything. That was the only thing that didn't really make sense. It felt kind of like hand waved away, which is it's not huge, but yeah.
What was the answer?
That the Whispers are the voices of like the dead people on the island.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was just kind
Sorry,
of.
I haven't finished here, guys. Since I haven't finished, and you guys haven't gotten to that part yet.
Yeah.
Oh, you're good. It was just unceremoniously answered to me. Like Hurley's like, "That's what these whispers are, right?" And Michael's like, "Yeah, man."
Well, I feel like that was. I mean, I thought it was a decent answer because it's the people that are stuck there that like
helping and guiding the island or helping the island like not be harmed.
There's two minor things that I'd like to know. I'd like to know why Libby was in the mental hospital and all that
Me too.
shit.
I wanted to know that.
Yeah.
And there's a scene in season 5 where there's like another outrigger boat chasing the group and they're shooting at them. Yeah. And like Juliet and Sawyer are like shooting back. I don't know if you remember. And then they change time again and there's a storm. And that was just like a loophole that was never answered. It was just like something that was never answered in the show. Like who were those people chasing them? But not really that important. Yeah.
It's funny because those are pretty much the main ones that I also like kind of had on my mind when I finished the show. And I read a fun theory which for the rigger, the time jumping one, which that people theorized that was like actually in the future. Like that was people like in the future, like past the show's like timeline where we saw.
Nice.
Huh.
So if there's ever a lost reboot, maybe they'll. Yeah.
I didn't think of them like jumping forward. I always thought of them jumping back or just back to their present.
Because there's one point where they jump forward. They jump forward when the Ajira plane already crashed, and they find the Ajira stuff on the beach. So it's a possibility that they jump forward even further than that, and like we're fighting people that hadn't even gotten to the island yet that we saw.
That would be so cool.
That's interesting.
That is interesting. Surge wants to like a reboot so bad. I'm like, no, leave it. It's perfect. We don't want to touch this.
I think Surge should just reboot it. Like he should become the new director.
Yeah.
You become the controller of the island, Surge. Surge, I don't know if you're aware of this. Did you know that online somewhere someone made a chronological cut of the entire show?
Yeah, honestly, that's like kind of the way I want to watch it next time. If I had some time on my own.
It's a journey.
I tried to download it and it was like several gigs. So I was like, oh fuck, I need.
What do you mean
drive.
chronological? Like it was just a whole.
Do you want to explain it, Eric?
So basically, you know how the show jumps around, like flashbacks and like Jacob's backstory, Richard's backstory. Someone cut the entire show from the very first, like in timeline wise, very first scene with like Jacob's backstory all the way to like the end of the show, like in chronological order. Yeah.
Oh my god, I want to see that.
Yeah.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it is a very interesting way to watch it. Like you just see all the flashbacks happen before they even get on the island, and then all the island stuff without flashbacks.
Yeah, they said the craziest part is the plane crash because that's the culmination of everything, like of like 7 or 8 different stories coming together. So you see like everyone's perspective come together all at once.
There's a cool edit someone did online of like Flight 815 crashing in real time, and it shows like Desmond failing to hit the button and Ben and them like seeing them. Someone just like cut all 3 of those scenes together.
Dang, a lot of people were really invested in the show.
Oh yeah.
I feel like to do that.
Oh yeah,
it was the whole thing.
It was. It was like I want to say like not as big as Game of Thrones when it was out because the internet and social media wasn't super prevalent. But I feel like Lost was a big like.
Like I feel like if there was social media, it would have been more like.
Yeah.
It was a big pioneer though of like the viral marketing aspect of it. Like you can go online, you can find like secret videos and like information about the show, in worlds type stuff, and like it was a big proponent of that, which made it very special to the viewers at the time that I know about. And in that sense, I wanted to ask, was there any theory that you guys had that in hindsight was like totally outlandish? Like you were just like way off base.
Me, I thought like with season 6 when it began and they were all in the airport again, I was like, oh my God, they succeeded. They reset everything. They're not going to go back to the island. And this is how their lives were supposed to play out after they landed from Australia to LA. I thought that's like how everything was meant to be if they never crashed. Well, I was completely wrong about that.
That's not super out. That's like
no, dude. I literally thought that's like how they like he got to like land and bury his dad or look for his dad and bury his dad. Like Locke did that, and everybody's like Kate, was on the airplane and she escaped, but then found Charlie. Like I thought all that was gonna happen. I was like, what? But yeah, it was really cool that I was wrong. I'm glad I was wrong.
Yeah. I think I don't really know if I had an outlandish theory. I just think that like my physics theories that I threw out there didn't really make any sense to anyone. They were like, what is she talking about? I was like, bro, I don't know, but it doesn't make sense about how it's going. So I'm going to just like,
talking about time travel with Nikki was so funny.
I'm telling you, it just goes over my head. And I'm not kidding when I say this, I actually failed physics. So I had to take it twice. So that subject just does not make any sense to me.
Yeah. Suraj, I mean, you were, in the whole zeitgeist when it was going on. Was there anything that you had or that you saw from people that, was a wild theory that didn't really pan out?
Yeah, someone thought that the island was on the back of a giant sea turtle, which was kind of like Avatar-ish.
That's how
the
it's moving?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I was like, that's kind of a cool theory, but I didn't think for a second it was real. But yeah, I would entertain a lot of theories that were online.
Right.
The purgatory one being my least favorite, that they were dead the whole time.
Oh, no.
Right.
So
You know how many people have told me that after I finished the show? They're like, they were dead the whole time, Nikki. I was like, what?
There are still people that believe that they were dead the whole time.
Yeah, they are.
So yeah, not too crazy for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been so long. Like I remember I used to have some crazy theories or thoughts in my head, but I can't think of anything. Like, do you remember anything I said back then?
Well, the one I know that people had mentioned halfway through the show was that people thought the island was Neverland.
What?
They thought the island, because you don't age on it. There's a monster with a clock in it. There's like a bunch of like parallels with like Peter Pan to it. That people thought it was a Neverland parallel.
I never got that.
I like the season 1. One of the theories was that they were like still on the plane and it was crashing, but this was like the externalization of their deaths happening. Like them not being able to open the hatch was like the hatch of the plane, them trying to like escape or something like that. And like the monster was making ticka sounds like a plane or something.
Yeah.
So,
I think that'd be even worse than the purgatory theory. Like they're just like all dying, not dead, but they're dying the entire show.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
No, I didn't go that wild.
Yeah, I don't think I ever saw anything that extreme on the show.
Yeah.
I don't.
So I think we can start wrapping it up here. But I do want to touch final points. What did you guys feel you took away most from the show, as far as like a lesson or a theme or something that kind of like if it meant something to you in a personal way, that taught you something about yourself or about anything at any point in your life? Like, do you think is there anything that really how it impacted you in a certain way?
For me, that's a really
good question.
Good question. I think for me, I would have to say that love really conquers all. And it does have a lot of memories to it. At the beginning of the show, I was in a steady relationship. Then towards the middle, I was not, and I started not to, I'm far away from the fact that everyone knows that I love love. Like I say that all the time. But in like reality, I feel like it wasn't true. And I feel like this show kind of brought that back and is like, hey, like, this can happen. Like you will eventually find something or someone that you can love, and it's out there. So I feel like that's what this show was about for me.
Right.
That's really cool.
That's great. Yeah.
For me, I guess like it taught me to. It's just like Suraj said, don't judge a book by its cover. You don't know what somebody's going through. You never know who the person is. Even if they did something bad in their life, you don't know why they did it or like what their reasons behind it was. And to like be open to talking to people and getting to know them more and to enjoy the mystery in life. You don't always need to know what an answer for everything. Just enjoy life. Because like I grew up wondering like, is there a God? Is there a higher power? I want to know everything. I need to know. But this taught me like, just enjoy the mysteries of life. Like you don't know who's out there or what power or whatnot. Just enjoy.
All right.
That's good because a lot of people, like there was a good Patreon comment saying the island is just a crucible for life and putting the characters through things that they don't have the answers to. And we will never have the answers to life's mysteries, throughout the course of our existence.
Yeah.
And we should just be with each other, which is my takeaway was like, no one does it alone. Like what Kristen is saying to Jack at the end, and like you needed them as much as they needed you. So like just needing, you need people in your life. Live together, die alone. And so I love that aspect of the show. There's so many things I like about the show, lessons wise, but I think that one is my favorite takeaway.
There's a lot of emotion in it. Like it taught you a lot of just like emotion and just dealing with like outside life in a different way.
Yeah, I felt like it did bring out a lot of like different emotions in me too. Like even just talking about it right now, I kind of like remember and I'm like, oh, that was so sad.
Yeah.
Like
I'm really happy that it show did that for you.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
By a symptom of watching the show, I will never see those numbers the same again. Every time they're brought up, I'm like, that's why Jackie Robinson was number 42. Just random things.
This doesn't get me into trouble, but the 4 numbers on my debit card right now are 4, 8, 15. and so it's like it's how I usually remember that part of it.
That's hilarious.
Lewis, is there anything you kind of took away from the show thematically?
I think you guys kind of nailed it. I'm in the same thing too, where I have seen Lost during hard relationships in my life as well, and I was able to relate a lot of stuff, especially like when they're like showing how much they love the other person. And like if I was going through a breakup, I felt that, and it make me feel more emotion. Like I've seen scenes of Lost where like I just saw it straight, and then like the second time I saw it around, it made me feel really emotional. So I think that's really good, and I think a lot of it is like, not to say like everything's our destiny or that we're not in control of everything, but I did like really love the theme of just like you guys all needed each other at the end of the day. So whether you guys did something to negate what happened in the present, at the end of the day, like your spirits and your souls like all needed to find each other, because that's the way it was supposed to happen, and that's the only way you guys were gonna embark or move on to whatever is next. You
can overcome a lot with each other.
Yeah, I really like that. No, I think that whole message, like being together is better than being alone, is a big aspect of life.
Yeah, or exactly. And for me, it's very similar, which is in addition to that, with the concept of time being a very present thing throughout the show. Time skipping, and even in like it's maybe you pointed this out, Surge, when Ben's daughter, what was her boyfriend's name? Forgot.
Oh, Carl.
Yeah, when he's being tortured with like the weird torture room like in his eyes, and if you play the message backwards, it says time is not real, or there's no time. The time was always a present thing in the show, and I love that it kind of culminated to the end, which was when they're in the flash sideways. That it's a place that's kind of like displaced from time. Like it's like the idea that when we move on, our loved ones will always be there waiting for us, and we'll all move on together in some aspect. And that was always special to me. From an existential standpoint, I always liked the idea of connections that you made in life to people who are important to you will matter in the end, like somehow, and it'll always be there for you. Like even if you drift away, you part ways, it'll always have an impact on you one way or another, and it shapes kind of who you are by the end.
Yeah,
and that's beautiful.
I will always be coming back to Lost. Like as I grow as a person, go through different phases of my life. Just like you, Luis, like I've seen it after various different relationships in my life too. And you just kind of view different scenes. You view scenes differently, and you take away different things from it, like letting go with Jack and his like whole paranoia about Sarah and everything.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah, it's just good lessons to take away from these characters. They're wholesome. Like they boil down to very simple points, but the way the actors portray everything in the show is very realistic, and I think that's another reason why it excels so far above its like the material that's in it even. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a beautiful show.
Yeah.
Very good show.
And that's about it. I kind of wanted to wrap things up. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this. Like I said, Luis loves the show, and it's something that we talk about frequently on random nights when it comes to mind.
Bring it up so much. We
to come hang out with you guys because we were going to talk about Lost for a while.
I've met them now twice in person.
Yeah.
Damn. I know. We're BFFs.
Yeah. Rana is always welcome, and Surge, everyone's always welcome. If you guys ever make a trip to LA, feel free to let us know.
For sure. It was very awesome talking about the show with you guys. Thank you.
And thank you for like watching our reactions along with us. We really do appreciate
I
it.
love them, guys.
Thank you. Well, you're gonna love the finale. There's a lot of ugly crying.
Yeah, there's a lot of ugly crying and sniffling. So
yeah, and if anyone's listening to this, definitely check out the Normies on YouTube. You guys want to shout out your social medias and your Patreon and all that?
Oh yeah, sure. The _Normies, I believe, on Instagram. Same with Twitter,
Facebook.
The Normies group on YouTube. Yeah, please check us out on Patreon. Early access, uncut episodes. We have a gaming channel as well. Come hang out with us. We're a bunch of weirdos chilling on the couch.
Yeah, a bunch of good people. Good people doing good things.
Thank you.
Oh,
thank
thanks,
you.
man.
Yeah.
And with that, I guess we will call it a show. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye.